I think Aaron's final comment was probably just outstanding and perfect transition to our next session. I'm going to ask two friends, and they are former colleagues of one another, two of my sort of just most favorite people in the Indiana tech community, one of whom is now one of my very favorite people in the Indiana Agbioscience community. They're going to come up and have a conversation about just sort of what we heard about here at the close, kind of that entrepreneur's journey with their past experiences together in the tech community. And then we're going to transition to some stories of some really outstanding and emerging leaders, entrepreneur leaders in the Agbiosciences. So please join me in welcoming Mitch Frazier and
Fantastic to see what AgriNovus has done. How about a round of applause for Beth and the team at AgriNovus? Absolutely incredible. I love this event every year, and I hope everybody has that just sense of energy and excitement that comes with this event every year. What's so fun is you look around the room and you see companies who have 2 people, 3 people with that idea. And you look around the room and you look a little further, and what you see is you see that large multinational corporation that's really working hard to find the next innovation, to find the next thing, the next big idea. Friends, what we have this morning is something that's absolutely incredible. What we have is a man who has done that. He has served at every single stage of growth that we just talked through. He's a guy who took an idea and 2 buddies, actually a brother-in-law and a buddy, and created a company from an idea. And he grew that idea into a company that was the largest IPO, software as a service IPO on the New York Stock Exchange at the time in 2012. He continued to grow that company as CEO and chairman and had an exit with Salesforce.com. So Salesforce.com bought that idea of 3 guys. He grew it to 5 continents. He completed 6 acquisitions. And Salesforce paid more than $2.5 billion to acquire the company. Friends, this morning we have an opportunity to learn from a guy who has not just been transformational to my life, he's been transformational to this region, not just Indiana, but the Midwest. Please help me welcome Managing Director of High Alpha, Scott Dorsey.
Thank you, Mitch. Thanks so much.
Scott, it is, first of all, it's just great to be with you on stage
Mitch.
again. It's
Thank
been,
you.
So Scott and I spent time together at ExactTarget, my stop before Reynolds Farm Equipment, John Deere dealer here in Indiana. Scott, as I look across the room, there's so many people with that idea, right? That light bulb moment that sort of goes off and you say, this is it. I have to go do this. Maybe if you would, walk us through the light bulb moment as you, Chris, and Peter started thinking about ExactTarget, and then the big bet. You had to convince your wife to say, hey, let's move our young family to Indiana. I don't know anybody there, but this is going to be great. We're going to go build a technology company. Walk us through that.
I'd be happy to, Mitch. Good morning, everyone. Delighted to be here at AgriNovus, and thank you, Beth, for having me. And Mitch, thank you for that warm welcome. All of us should be so grateful to have a guy like Mitch to introduce us. So that was incredibly generous, incredibly generous. So our spark of an idea occurred in 2000. And as Mitch referenced, we started ExactTarget with 2 co-founders, my brother-in-law, Chris Baggett, who interestingly enough, post-marketing automation has really moved into ag and farming and food tech, and a gentleman by the name of Peter McCormick. And Chris had the big idea. Chris really had the light bulb around how marketing was moving to the internet, and organizations of all sizes would need software tools to connect with their customers in a new way. I was in Chicago, as Mitch referenced, attending graduate school. I was incredibly fortunate to be studying for my MBA at Kellogg, part of Northwestern, from 96 to 99. Just the internet was coming of age. And my focus, my 2 majors actually were entrepreneurship and internet business models. And for 3 years, just really kind of broke down all the first-gen internet models, Amazon, eBay, Peapod, and felt like I was a prepared mind of knowing what ingredients I was looking for or what ingredients perhaps would be successful in this new online world. So That was a big part of it. My wife's originally from Indianapolis, so taking a big leap of faith and moving our young family to Indy, we had a family connection that gave us a real chance to be happy here as a family. And then beyond that, we just decided to go for it. We were passionate about the idea. I was really eager to be an entrepreneur and to be a CEO, and delighted that we were so embraced and supported by this community, and it worked out so well.
It sure did, Scott. It's fascinating. Rarely do you see a leader who can have an idea, and there's so many out here. And I think whether you're in a small company, whether you're in a large multinational company, you're somewhere in between, you're working on the farm. Scott, it's rare to be that guy or gal who has the initial idea and can scale with a company, right? To go from knocking on doors with guys with swimming pools, I remember the story, right? To go raise money, to really, being a senior executive at the largest cloud-based software as a service CRM company on the planet. If you could just walk us through what advice you would give folks as they look at growing a company from a product basis, from an actual company basis, and then as a leader. Those are three big challenges as you grow a company.
Yeah, no, that's great, Mitch. I would say a couple areas of advice that come to mind. I think first is just be curious, have a beginner's mind. The more you can learn, the better. I was fortunate that I didn't know what I didn't know. The three of us that started ExactTarget, none of us had a software background, and we were entering this age of software as a service and cloud computing for the first time. One of the benefits is we didn't have the legacy of what enterprise software looked like in the past. We were starting with a kind of a fresh palette. But because we didn't have that background or even that confidence, we were always in a learning mindset to learn from everybody possible. So we really invested in learning, finding mentors, surrounding ourselves with amazing advisors and investors that could help us grow. That was probably part one. And then I'd say part two, Mitch, is building an amazing team. And so I kind of look back on our ExactTarget journey, and Mitch and I have talked about this often. I would say the one element that probably stands above the rest was creating a company culture and an environment that just phenomenal people wanted to be a part of, and they worked incredibly well. They supported each other, they challenged each other, and really much of what Aaron spoke about around how you think about investments, teams, culture, Midwest values, we did our very best to embody all of that and create a company that just extraordinary people wanted to be a part of and wanted to work hard to serve their customers, but also not let down a teammate. And when you build talent and teamwork in the right culture in a growing market, really good things can happen.
Yeah, I want to unpack that a bit, Scott, because all of us as leaders in the room, every single person has this challenge, right? As you grow a company, as you grow an organization, when you're 3 people, when you're 5 people, when you're 20 people, 100 people, I don't want to say it's easy, it's always hard, but you can kind of get your arms around it. Scott, you completed 6 acquisitions during the ExactTarget days, went from kind of a regional to a national to a global company operating on 5 continents. How? Right? So how did you bring people along that journey? The folks that started with employee 3, employee 10, employee 20, but then also how were you able to keep that magnet, right? Be the magnet where talent really wanted to be a part of.
Sure, that's great. My favorite book of all time is Jim Collins' Good to Great, and that was really our guide along the ExactTarget journey. And one of the elements that Collins speaks about is level 5 leadership, which is a mix of humility but also determination. And we tried to infuse that into our culture, that we were humble, kind, hardworking people, but we still wanted to be best in the world. We still wanted to compete and win, and we wanted to be the largest marketing technology company in the world, but do it in the right way, do it with integrity and character. So that was a strong element. And then secondly, and Mitch, we were a big part of creating this together, we built a culture framework called Orange, and this is kind of a fun story. Our brand color was orange, and in the early days of software as a service, we really wanted to be unique and stand out. I'd say today in the world of software, there are many, many software companies with orange as their primary brand color, but back in the earlier days, you had a company called Omniture that had a special green, Salesforce was red. We wanted a visual identity around the color orange. So that became our predominant brand color, and if we were at a conference or really anywhere in the world, when you saw orange, we wanted people to think of ExactTarget. In parallel, we kept getting feedback from our employees and customers and partners that you could feel a special energy when you stepped into an ExactTarget building or when you met with an ExactTarget team member. There was passion, humility, drive, something really, really special. So we would talk about culture being important, We had a strong set of core values that were really our guiding light around making decisions and driving the right behavior and empowering team members to go quickly. But we didn't have a way to really describe our culture. And there was actually Tim Kopp, our chief marketing officer, suggested to me, why don't we leverage orange into our culture and create a culture called Orange, or Be Orange. And I candidly wasn't so sure. We were 300 or 400 people, had a pretty good sense we were going to scale to 1,000 to 2,000 in a short period of time. And I didn't want this to feel like kind of a big company top-down initiative. And our team, I think, really rolled it out in the right way, which was a flexible framework that employees could make their own, could embrace. So Orange became our culture, and Orange really transcended our team into our partners and our customers. And as we expanded globally and did acquisitions, kind of Be Orange became the company mantra, and it became a feeling you had about the company and your coworkers and your customers that almost didn't need words. And it really was the thread that tied our acquisitions and our geo-expansion together. So our team in Australia would have a team building event. They'd be wearing orange and they'd be proud. They'd be representing our company in Australia through their lens. And we had subcultures that all tied into the macro culture. And it's really interesting how powerful a color can be. It creates visual identity, creates a sense of belonging, creates energy. So orange was a real key element to our success.
It's a fascinating balance, Scott, when you sort of peel back orange and you really get to that white hot center. There's this precise emotion, right? So we were a driven organization focused on metrics clearly, but then there was this emotion that was evoked by orange. I just think it was a fascinating experience. So I think that the piece is, before we move on to High Alpha, because we have to hear about what you're doing at High Alpha, is, and this is a question I'm sure you get often. So as you look back now, right? So the company was founded early part of the century, which is crazy to say, right? Looking back now, if there's anything you could go back and tell yourself then, right? So you and Peter are thinking about this business. Chris has this idea. What would you tell yourself then that you learn now?
I think it's all about people. It's all about team. If I look back on mistakes made, it was often perhaps maybe a key hire where we fell in love with the person's kind of resume, background, pedigree, but maybe in our heart of hearts knew the culture fit wasn't going to be there. They may not be able to assimilate with the other team members. And that's a big lesson learned, I would say, that I carry with me today is really focusing on team, chemistry, culture, really above everything. That's remarkably important. And then I would say clarity. You know, as you scale an organization, having a vision, having core values, having clarity on what everyone's trying to accomplish is remarkably important. Everybody wants to do a great job, but they really need clarity and to make sure that everybody's aligned in your most precious resource is time. So really helping everybody optimize their time and work toward common goals. Those are big lessons that I carry with me today.
Yeah, one big lesson that I have to share with the friends here in the audience is, and this is a lesson that I've taken as a leader now, Scott, is Scott's a very humble man. He's not going to tell you this, but I will tell you, everyone at least knows directionally of the ExactTarget story, and Scott, what you've built is absolutely astounding. What you may not know is Scott is an amazing father, and Scott is an amazing husband. And as we all think about growing professionally, we think about growing our business, whether that's an entrepreneur or intrapreneur or a corporate executive. Scott, you set a pattern at ExactTarget of really investing at home long before you invested at work. And I think we should all take that as a lesson learned of, you always coach the girls' basketball teams, right? I remember it plain as day. And you may never know the true impact of that, but I would encourage all of us, if you're taking notes and take something down, is invest at home long before you invest at work. So thank you for that.
Thank you, Mitch. Thank you very much.
Of course. So let's move into High Alpha.
Okay,
some
great.
incredible work. So High Alpha Venture Studio also doing some investment. And I'm sure as you look across the audience, you look at what Aaron just pitched, you're like, there's some pretty interesting things here. Would love to hear and maybe share with folks what you're seeing. There's some big trends that you get a lot of at-bats. You're seeing lots of different verticals, lots of different industries. What are you seeing now at High Alpha, and what are you guys up to?
Yeah, I'd be happy to. So maybe just a quick overview of High Alpha. We started High Alpha in spring of 2015. Four of us started the company, amazing co-founders that I have, Mike Fitzgerald, Eric Tobias, and Christian Anderson. And all of us had a background in software as a service and cloud, and really love Indy. And that's an element, hopefully, of the ExactTarget story that comes out really loud and clear is for a new person who moved into Indianapolis without really any relationships or history in the city, the support that I received and our company received was just off the charts, just extraordinary. Every mayor and governor, business leaders, friends, teammates, I just felt so extraordinarily supported by this community. And for really every moment that I've been in Indy, I want to work hard to do anything I can to make Indy and the state of Indiana a better place and give back. And High Alpha is a really neat intersection of what we love doing, which is starting and scaling new cloud companies, and also hopefully doing something meaningful and impactful for Indy. And one of the wonderful elements about software as a service and cloud companies is you can create a lot of jobs if you do your job right. If you end up building the business in the right way, software as a service, SaaS, software as a service, is about building subscription revenue businesses that are very durable and stand the test of time, have high gross margins, and allow you to create a lot of jobs. And it was actually funny. We had a board member from Boston with Battery Ventures during the ET journey. I would always be gloating about job growth. Like I just loved job growth. And so much of it was feeling like the community was kind of cheering us on and that we could make a difference in Indy. We could help transform India into a technology city, into a technology ecosystem. And he would often say things like, hey, Scott, creating jobs is great, but how about creating some profits? All the time he would. And fortunately in software, you don't have to really create profits, you have to create more revenue. And jobs that go along with it are a good thing. So the profits came later, but the job growth was the focus. And at High Alpha, I think we have the same opportunity. So we are a venture studio. We're one part startup studio, where we start new cloud companies, and one part venture fund, where we invest in our studio companies, but also other high growth SaaS and cloud companies all throughout North America. And we're looking for many of the things that Aaron referenced. We're looking for big markets. We're looking for talented entrepreneurs. We're looking for leadership teams that we believe we're a good cultural fit with and we can really help support their business. The really fun part is searching for new ideas. So at the core, we are a company that starts companies. And that is remarkably hard to do. It's incredibly rewarding, but it's really difficult to do. All of us can come up with 100 reasons why a new idea or a new business may not work. And our top of the funnel really flows new ideas in from everywhere. And I'd like to hear from all of you as you have new ideas for SaaS and cloud businesses. We have our own ideas. We have a team of 35 to 40 people, data scientists, designers, business analysts, experts in scaling SaaS companies. So we have our own ideas. We have entrepreneurs that approach us with an idea or a prototype. We work with venture firms that see big themes and big opportunities they'd like us to leverage. And then the fourth, which is also a theme that Aaron referenced, is big co's. We are finding big companies are going through radical digital transformation. They're working hard to reinvent themselves and often are finding their own R&D efforts or maybe M&A efforts aren't enough, and they want to be creating new businesses. They want to be agile. They want to be thinking like an entrepreneur. And we're starting more and more businesses with big corporate partners that realize these companies have a better chance of innovating and scaling really outside of their four walls. So that's a big trend that we expect will fuel a lot of our new businesses over the next 3 or 4 years.
Scott, you and I sit side by side, putting pitch decks together, raising money. As folks out here in the audience think about, I have that idea, it's time to go raise money. Or maybe you're an entrepreneur and you're working in a big company and you want to go pitch the idea. We've had some pitches that have gone well. We've had some pitches that had room for improvement. What advice would you give folks? How do you build that pitch? Now as the guy that's sitting on the other side of the table with the investment opportunity, you've got a different perspective maybe than we did together. What advice would you give?
Sure, I think for thinking through how to build competitive advantage, how to pitch your business, how to raise capital, Aaron also provided a lot of really wonderful advice. I think I would just add, we really start with what problem are we solving? What aspect of life or technology or business, or it could be farming and ag, can we make better? So we actually spend a lot of time on problem definition and really understanding current state, and then applying a framework of technology and solutions to make that problem go away or improve it over time. So it's what problem you're solving and why are you uniquely qualified? What's your unfair competitive advantage that you can build a sustainable business that can really scale? And we have regional advantages too, and that's really a lot of what I think about regionally is, and why I'm so excited about being here today, of how do we better connect our ag sector with our cloud tech sector? How do we leverage the raw ingredients and the assets we have in this region to create competitive advantage? And we can do it, and we can do it in so many different ways, but those are many of the elements we look for. And then we absolutely look for the passion of the entrepreneur, the ability for them to grow and scale, and hopefully a business where we can add some value.
Awesome. We have time for one more question before we get into the panel. And I think you teed it up beautifully. When you look at Indiana, when you look at the opportunity that we have here, number 5 in corn production, number 5 in soybean production, we've had at least 5 big tech exits, software as a service exits here in Indiana. The intersection of those two opportunities are really strong. When you look at the folks at ExactTarget that we worked with, the folks at Aprimo, the folks at Genesis Interactive Intelligence, many of them were a generation or two away from rural Indiana or away from the farm. As you think of that in the backdrop, Scott, and you look at ag tech, you look at the opportunity, I don't think High Alpha has made a direct investment in ag tech or incubated an ag tech company. Will you be making an investment in ag tech?
I hope so. I hope so. That's why I'm here today. In a couple moments, I'll be really delighted to introduce you to 4 super talented young ag tech entrepreneurs. We've made one investment that's ag-related, a phenomenal company, San Francisco-based, called Drone Deploy, and they build photo imaging technology for agricultural and industrial applications. And I actually know many local farmers that use Drone Deploy, which is really fantastic. So that's a neat intersection of drone technology and software as a service. They were interested in us at High Alpha because of our SaaS background and because of our Midwest orientation. So for us, that's kind of a half step, I would say, into ag tech. But we absolutely look forward to pursuing ag tech investments in the future. And then personally, I'm very passionate about how do we bring Indiana's strong sectors together in really new and compelling ways. And I really believe we have an opportunity to connect this marketing SaaS cloud world with the world of agriculture and bioscience and develop and scale companies here in a very special way.
Well, Scott, I can tell you have a friend at the local John Deere dealer, and we are excited to figure out how we make that connection together. Please help me thank Scott Dorsey, Managing Director of High Alpha.
Thanks, Mitch. Well done, buddy. Thank you very much.